What up, baddies? Bosses and bossettes. Welcome back to another live. So today, Mr. Jonte. I don't really like that name so much anymore because it's very French. It's giving French. You know, it has a nice ring to it, it has a nice twang to it. But if we really want to get down to the nitty gritties, you know, it's a colonizer name, low key. So don't know about that one. Don't know about that one there. You know what I mean? So, before we get into the video, I'm just going to do the usual audio check. Make sure that our audio and everything is fine because we don't want to be twang to it, talking to nobody. If we and the audio is fine, so we're going to get straight into it. Let me just organize myself. So, guys, let me get straight into it, right? As you can tell from the title, today we're going to get into a little bit of a history kind of moment, okay? And bear with me, you know, as I say in my videos all the time, I'm still learning. You know, it's a natural part of life to be learning and growing and to, you know, have some things to expand on, right? But I've reached a certain level where I feel as though the things that I have expanded on need to be shared, okay? And that is what I'm about to do here today, okay? That is what I do here in my videos every day. But today we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. If you've seen my previous videos, then you would know that I've talked a little bit about this, about how Maori and also other native indigenous people from around the world, specifically Aboriginal Australian, but Aboriginal is not necessarily the right term. We're talking about First Nations people of Australia because they are not one synonymous group. They are many, many different ethnic groups within, as well as America, Indigenous Americans, which is why they do not just have one blanket term for all of them. As opposed to somewhere like New Zealand, we have the term Maori because it is more of a general idea that we are generally the same ethnicity amongst everybody in New Zealand being indigenous native peoples. All right, so this is why we have a term known as Maori to differentiate us from someone such as, you know, Australian First Nations, which is a representation of nations or groups of people, as opposed to Maori, which is a reference to one group of people, right? So that's just putting it simply and plainly right there before we even get into it. That's a little preface. So when it comes to the video that I'm about to get into, we're going to be talking about similar concepts to what I've talked about prior, which is how colonization comes to be, how manipulation tactics are actually used to discredit and discourage anybody within the ethnic group of the country that they are trying to invade. And this is the way that they actually colonize your mind, and they get you to switch over to being more on the European side to try and basically destroy your mindset, destroy your way of life, destroy your integrity, destroy your mana, right? And that's a concept that Europeans didn't even have. Otherwise, they would have had a word for it, right? I argue maybe they didn't even have a concept of power per se in that proper aspect. But their concept of power is control, is manipulation. That's what they consider to be power. So when it comes to actual power, Maori people and other indigenous people as well know what actual power is when it comes to these kind of situations. So this is why we have the terms such as mana, right? To describe an actual power, not a power that is used or gained through manipulation. Although you can take away someone's mana through manipulation, however, that is still not you having mana yourself. You are just having the ability to actually take that mana, you know? So that's a form of mana, I guess you could say, if we really want to get technical about it. But when we're talking about literal sense, that is not real power. That is not real mana, right? That is just you having the ability to be able to take away someone's mana. that should have a whole nother word for it. That should be a whole different freaking word, all right? So now that we've got that out of the way with the mana, when it comes to their source of mana, their source of power, their only source of power is by taking others' powers away. This is why they go to other countries and they try to manipulate the general population into abiding by their laws, their regulations, because in their mind, they have a sense of superiority, which is also why I put, if you see on my YouTube, the thumbnail that I put in the background, these two guys in the picture, you got the two Maori guys on the left, you got the one Pākehā guy on the right? The Pākehā guy is trying to be seen as depicted as more civilized. But if you look at the actual picture and you look at who has the power in the situation, it's the Maori, right? So when the Europeans first came, they like to try and play history as Maori people had no power. Maori people were worn down. Maori people were the ones who were in need, right? But we weren't the ones in need, because if you even look at all the pictures of them depicting their interactions with Maori people coming to New Zealand, all of them, you witness Maori people being in statures and positions of power. You don't stand like that. You don't look like that if you don't have some essence or some sense of power within yourself. And that's not power coming from taking someone's power. That's actually power coming from you having said power, right? So just their European concept, just their European art alone, just their European pictures alone that they try to paint and try to put and depict Maori in already shows their lack of awareness of where they're actually going, because they're trying to manipulate the picture and the situation and say, oh, all Maori people were savages, all Maori people were in need, all Maori people were basically like peasants. They try to make Maori people look like peasants, right? But the very people who are painting the pictures already show you the opposite was true. In fact, it was more so the Europeans were in positions of feeling like they had to learn from the Maori. You don't ever have someone sitting there feeling like they have to, like for example, in the picture that I put, you don't ever have someone there sitting there feeling like they have to flaunt something such as a book to display their intelligence, to display their wisdom. That comes from a place of insecurity. Whenever you see someone out in the real world going out and trying to say all these different things about, I have this, I'm doing this, and they try to flaunt it all the time, and they constantly trying to push it in your face, you'll instantly assume, that person must have some kind of insecurity, feeling like they have to prove themselves about something, right? So that in itself already shows. It already shows that whoever was in that picture trying to depict that European man, trying to depict him in a way that's made him seem more superior, already they come from an insecure space of feeling like they were inferior. So they had to paint and depict the picture and put it out like, oh no, those are the inferior ones. But inadvertently, they already painted the picture. And if you're in modern times now looking at that photo, you can clearly see there was nobody inferior. If anything, there's just two people in their own world, in their own different perspectives, all right? And I wanted to do this disclaimer at the start of the video, because I know some people may get the wrong idea, right? This disclaimer at the start of the video, which it's not really necessarily the start right now. This is not a video about trying to slander or trying to point fingers or trying to blame. This is just to correct the vision that has been skewed by European perspectives, by European ways of thinking, right? That is pushed on everyone, especially in modern Western society. You guys are brainwashed to think that one is better than the other, when in actuality, you don't ever see that in real life. If you see one person living their life and another person living their life, you just see two different people living life the way that they wanted to, right? Unless you're stuck in your ego and you think that, one person's life or way of living is better than the other, then in which case you're just stuck in an ego and you're probably got some kind of issues that you need to work on somewhere down the line. Because why are you trying to force someone else to live life like how you live life? Already that's starting from a low space in the mind. You know, you're already thinking about things in an egotistical, narcissistic perspective, as opposed to realizing, no, everyone wants to live their life the way they want to live their life. If one spirit wants to live their life, be depressed, act like, you know, the world is so hard and harsh and blah, 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 by all means, they have every right to live their life like that. And if anything, their spirit needs to go through certain lessons for them to actually learn about those things. Otherwise, they won't be able to know what they like and what they don't like. And eventually they'll come to that same conclusion that they don't actually necessarily like the life that they're living, although it may seem that at that current point in time. So yeah, when it comes to, I find myself catching and looking at to see who's viewing. Don't know why I'm doing that. That's some insecurity shit right there. You know what I mean? Like, get out of your insecurity bullshit, bitch. So, when it comes to, you know, just this whole concept in general, their whole concept of power, their whole concept of being in a position of superiority is manipulation. It is trying to manipulate people to see their life and their perspective as better. All of it is just based on their concept of manipulation. How well can they manipulate you into thinking that their way is better? And therefore, when they feel like they've succeeded, or you feel like that their way is better, then they feel like they've actually won, when in actuality, they haven't won anything. They've just gotten a whole bunch of people to follow some kind of lost train of thought, which is why everybody in this world seems like they're so lost and discombobulated right now, because you guys are all following European and, you know, Western ways of thinking. You don't ever see, or very, very rarely hear, unless it's from a European's perspective, about people pre-European colonization actually experiencing any of the shit that we experience now. That's why they even call it modern day issues, modern day, or first world, what do they say? First world problems. They should just change that, first world problems, to Western European colonized mind problems. It's not first world at all. It's just people who are stuck under a Western perspective, a Western mindset, right? So people will try to think, oh, well, no, it's not that. It's just the system that we're in isn't run properly. And it's, well, yeah, the system we're in isn't run properly because it's based on a European's way of thinking. And you're not in a European country. If you're in Australia, New Zealand, America, or any country that's not Europe, you're not in a European country. So European ways of doing things, European ways of living, European ways of thinking, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to go so right for you. You're going to feel like you're fighting a lost battle. And then once you do feel like you're winning, you're only going to be winning in a European's world. Okay, you're only going to be winning under their system, with their money, with their businesses, with their college, university, whatever the heck you want to call it. All of that stuff is pointing to their perspective and their way of living. But as soon as you go out into the real world, as soon as you go out and interact with real people, you can't relate. You can't connect to people. You can't regulate your emotions. You can't think properly. You know, like, you're blinded by your own shit, you know? So then you feel like, oh, well, why is the world like this? Why is the world so blah, blah, blah? The world isn't necessarily like that. Your world is like that because you started following a lost star. You started following Lucifer, you know? Lucifer is just a representation of the European perspective, European ways of thinking. Their light. Because they felt like they could do better than the country that they were in, aka the god that they were in. So, same concept as Lucifer. Lucifer was under God's realm, right? And he felt like he could do better than what God could do. Same way as Europeans. They thought, oh, let's go to this country. Oh, but I can do better than what you guys can do in your country. Like, what the fuck is that? That is Lucifer. If I ever freaking heard of it. If I ever freaking seen it, babes. So, when you're realizing it and you're seeing it from a clear perspective. Sorry, guys. I'm very passionate right now. I know I'm a bit hype right now. So bear with me. You know, I'm not going to try and calm it down. I'm just going to let it flow. Let it float, let it go. You know, like I also said in that video, I don't give a fuck. So, as well, you know, they always try to paint it like the Europeans were like well dressed and shit like that. How does that make sense? How you can go from one country to another, now all of a sudden your clothes are fucking perfectly clean, you look perfectly like you've had a fresh ass, clean ass shower, even though you're in a country where you don't know how to take care of yourself, you don't know any of the plants, any of the land, you don't know where the water sources are, except for the water that you just came off of. Like, so how all of a sudden are they the ones that seem cleaner? They the ones that seem like they have more resources? That doesn't make sense, and that actually isn't true. Actually, if you go back to pre-European, if you go back to colonization times and you actually look at things and you actually do your proper research, you'll actually find that they were doing majority of their trades in order to even get their resources with Maori people. So in order for them to even feel like they were provided for, they had to go through Maori people, and they didn't like that. So they try to build up a system where they were more substantiated than Maori, and then they tried to flip it on us, like, now you have to rely on us. So it's all a manipulation tactic where they try to play your game for you, when in actuality that was just your life. You were just living, you were just going about your life. But then they tried to turn it on you and try to say, oh, well, now our way of life is superior and you need us in order to live your life. Like, so that's their way of trying to play God, basically. They try to play God. Because pre-European times, we were just relying on the land, you know, the whenua, papatuanuku, ranginui, all of that stuff we were just relying on. That's the only thing we felt like we had to rely on. And then Europeans come along and they're like, oh, so you feel like you need to rely on all these different things. You feel like you should respect the land. You feel like you should respect the sky for the rain it gives you. Okay, well now what we're going to do is we're going to get that rain. We're going to put it in a plastic bottle and sell it to you in the supermarket. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take all this land. We're going to buy it. We're going to buy it illegally, aka steal it. And we're going to take that land. Now you have to rely on us instead of feeling like you can pay your respects, do your karakia, which is prayer, do your karakia and pray towards Papatuanuku, giving thanks, you know, for the appreciation for the land providing for you. Now you have to give thanks to us for providing for you because we took all your land, we dried it all up. Now we have all the crops over here in this little gated community. If you come past this fence, you're going to get shot with a freaking gun. Like, that's the way they think. That's how they think. That's how they act. So don't ever get it twisted and try to think that, like, because then they'll try to turn it on Maori people or, you know, whatever country you're from, but I speak for Maori because I'm Maori, you know. They try to turn it on Maori people and say, oh, look at all these Maori people, that all they were doing was fighting. They were fighting for resources, they were fighting for land, they were fighting for this. If you actually do your research and proper research on Maori culture, in fact, you don't even need to do your research, but if you actually want to take the time to do your research, you'll actually find that war was not actually very common pre-European times. War was a last resort, actually. And that's why we have things as haka, right? Kapa haka is a modern interpretation of what haka was. Haka itself is a representation of what could be, right? So when they do haka, that's them showcasing where basically that's like a challenge. It's like almost like in modern times, you guys would see it as like a dance battle. But if you imagine like, sounds stupid, I know, but bear with me. If you imagine like a dance battle, but instead of the winner of the dance battle, they get, what's it called? Instead of the person who wins the dance battle gets a prize or something, it's whoever has the best dance battle is basically the one who has the most mana, who has the most power. They're able to exert more influence and more control over others, basically. And it's not about control in the sense of European concept. It's just about, okay, who's going to be controlling this resource? Who's going to be controlling this portion of land? Who's going to be controlling this portion of land? Because Maori see it as we are all kaitiaki. right? So if you are not able to have a strong haka, you're not able to showcase your mana, showcase your connection to your tipuna, right? All of this stuff, then you are not worthy of being a kaitiaki of this specific portion of land. So when we go to war, when we would go to war back in those days, it wasn't about killing or senseless killing like the Europeans try to say. That's a European concept as well, senseless killing. Maori have actual respect for life. How can you have a culture of people who literally do karakia and pray and give thanks to the earth and the sky, but then they disrespect actual physical human lives? There's something's not right there. There's a what do they call it? A gap within the connection between one concept and another. Because if you respect the earth like you do, how can you disrespect human life? It doesn't make sense. It's not the way we live, right? So when we're talking about being kaitiaki, we're not talking about just being kaitiaki of Papatuanuku, of Ranginui, of Te Awa, the waterways, the rivers, right? We're not just talking about being kaitiaki of these things. We're actually talking about being kaitiaki of everything, all the life that is encompassed within that. That includes human life. So we're also seen as guardians for other humans as well. But when it comes to different tribes, we also would go to war in sense of, taking care of situations and law situations. And Europeans will try to turn it and say, oh, we'll see. Or you might even try to turn it and try to say, oh, we'll see, you guys killed each other because if you did something wrong, you would kill each other. But Europeans did the same thing. So they try to turn it on and flip it. Like I was saying earlier in the video, it's all about flipping it and try to be like, no, you're the bad guy. When in actuality, Europeans did this shit too. If anything, it was more senseless. If you look at actual Europeans, before they even came and colonized any country, you got thousands of years of, or hundreds of years of history of, you got, who's that guy? Vlad the Impaler. You got European, what do they call it? Medieval torture. All of that shit is European culture. So when we're talking about who's the savages, who's the barbarians, European culture is more barbaric than anything. They actually don't have any respect for life. And I'm not talking about, see, a lot of white people might watch this video and get offended. They'll be like, oh, well, I have respect for life. I'm not talking about you. And if you think I'm talking about you, you actually need to get out of your ego. I'm talking about the concept itself of European culture prior to colonization. We're talking about history here. We're talking about what happened during these times. Why were they thinking this way? What kind of actions they exhibit? And we can see that based on what history tells us, at least the stuff that we do know, because a lot of Europeans try to skew it, try to paint pictures and make it seem like one thing is like, is what it isn't, and what it isn't is what it is, like all of that kind of shit. So when we're talking about all of this stuff, you have to understand where things actually come from. And if anything, they try to point the finger and try to say, well, you guys were doing this, you guys were senselessly killing, and before Europeans came, you were barbaric and you would just kill each other and you would just like fight for land. It's like, isn't that what the fucking Europeans were doing? That's literally the same shit. Except they had kings and they had shit on paper, try to write it down and say, we were allowed to do this because this was ordained by our kingdom and this is against the law. That's the same shit. Same shit the Europeans were doing, same shit Maori were doing. You did something wrong, okay, well, you had to, they call it utu, repay. You had to repay something. And this is why a lot of Maori will say, even in modern times, but this is more European concept, they'll say an eye for an eye. It's not about an eye for an eye. It's about rebalancing, recalibrating to make sure that things are actually within order. Because if you allow someone to do something wrong to you, then you're just basically letting people walk all over you. So in terms of doing utu, doing repayment, going to war, or even not going to war, doing some other form of utu, of repayment, right? This is because we need to correct something. There's something that has been out of order and it needs to be corrected. Because Maori were about balance. They were about bringing things into order, into balance, but in a natural kind of way, not in a European way where their concept of order is you have to have some kind of freaking structure that you can only abide by only this structure, and if you go against this structure, then that's against this law, and blah blah blah, and oh my gosh, now you need like all of these concepts that try to keep you trapped and encaged. When Maori would do utu, when Maori go to war, when Maori do repayment, this was something that they would actually delegate. They would actually get within the wharenui, which is the meeting house. Well, literally whare meaning house, nui meaning great. So it's the great house of the village. It's the greatest house in the village where everyone is able to come together as a community, right? So everyone would meet in the wharenui, and we would all talk about, okay, well, what's the right way to get utu, to get repayment, to bring things back into order. And that is how Europeans would see that, and then they would try to say, oh, look at these barbaric people, all they care about is war, but no, that was more of a last resort. And if anything, the only reason Europeans seen it as us only caring about war was because a lot of Europeans did things that needed a lot of utu, a lot of repayment. So they did a lot of things that were to disrespect Maori culture and our hapu, which is our government systems, right? Because we governed within our family. We had our families, and we governed our family. So when it came to us coming together as a group, as a family, that was our government. And they were afraid of that because they were like, oh, look at these people, they're such a large family, and they feel like they have the ability to be able to come together and actually govern this situation, and they feel like they have the right to come to us and attack us. But mind you, if you even look at the first time when Europeans came, what was the first thing that they said that James Cook did? He shot the Maori. For what? For doing a haka. So just that in itself already shows you that was something that Maori grouped together. We delegated, and we decided on a general consensus of, okay, they've shot one of our own, right? So now we need to do some form of utu. And it may not have been war. In fact, I don't even remember ever reading anything after that situation of them going to war with any Maori. If anything, actually, they said that James Cook came back and he ended up trying to make peace afterwards. But they try to make it like James Cook was the one that tried to make peace. No. If Maori wanted to do something, they would have done something already. So just that in itself shows how non-warlike we were. Because otherwise, he literally shot one of our own. If we were so warlike, we would have just killed him on the spot. At least tried to, because Europeans definitely had guns. But don't get it twisted. Maori had weapons too. And if you actually look into European times, they were afraid of a lot of Maori. They were fearful of a lot of Maori. And that's not just because they saw us as savages, which was partly the fact, because they, had that skewed perspective where they thought it was all right for them to kill. But as soon as Maori started killing, now all of a sudden it's savages. It's savagery. But thankfully, we're at a time now we don't have to kill. We don't have to do none of that shit, And in fact, a lot of the same people with a lot of the same families are trying to actively go against that energy. It's just you guys, like a lot of people who are under their systems, under their ways of thinking, under their culture, just trying to still do like watered down versions of their energies where you guys are bickering amongst yourself and you guys are saying one race is more savage or one race is more evil than the other. But if you look at the system now, ain't nobody trying to do that shit. Ain't nobody trying to fight. Ain't nobody trying to go to war for bullshit like that. You know what I mean? And if anything, a lot of Maori have even taken the steps to actually already get their utu, get their repayment. This is why you have, like in my family, We already have trust funds within our name. We have like large shares of land, and even other Maori whānau, um, especially some Maori families that don't even know that. A lot of Maori families don't even know that there's actually land in your guy's name, unclaimed, and it's under the government. But if you don't claim it, they are allowed to just, I don't know what they're allowed to do. I honestly haven't researched into what they can do with that. But if you don't claim it, it's not your land. You know what I mean? So basically, they're not. It's not like they're stopping, Maori people from actually reclaiming certain parts of their land. Don't get me wrong. There's certain parts where they are trying to stop shit. They are still trying to, keep people down. But then we're not in those old barbaric times where they're trying to do a lot of the things that they used to do, a lot of the manipulation tactics that they used to do. But nowadays, it's different manipulation tactics. It's all manipulation on a more subtle level. So nowadays, they try to put it in your news. They try to manipulate you guys through the news with all their toi tu te tiriti. Trying to say that they're going to change te tiriti or waitangi. I know, like a lot of people will definitely resonate with that and feel like that's something to fight for. But if you look at history, and you look at the way that they act, what makes you think that they're going to do things right by you even now, even if you do the whole hikoi, which is the whole walk. They call it the hikoi. If you're not from New Zealand, basically there's this big protest going on, toi tu te tiriti, and they're doing this big hikoi, this big journey, this big walk. It's probably ended now, I don't even know. Some people might be still doing it to try protest against te tiriti or waitangi. I did another video on it quite a while ago. If you check it out on my channel, you can search up toi tu te tiriti is manipulation, I'm pretty sure it's called. So, they try to say, oh, well, if we just do this protest, if we just go to court and we just all do this referendum and sign against this bill, then they won't do X, Y, Z. But all of this is just them still doing the same shit. They're still trying to do manipulation tactics. Same way they started Te Tiriti, started the treaty, and they started it with manipulating. What makes you guys think that they're not going to keep manipulating it? That's the whole name of the game. That is the treaty. It's manipulation. It's not, they manipulated it once and then now they're going to try and, do it a little bit better. No, the whole basis of the treaty is manipulation. So I'd argue that even if people were trying to do right, just the treaty itself is based on manipulation. So you're going to have to create a whole new system, a whole new way of relating in order for you to actually clear all of that out, in order for you to create something new. Otherwise, you're just trying to change something that's based off of manipulation. You know what I mean? It's like the same system of capitalism in itself. People try to make capitalism some kind of ethical thing. But if you learn about actual capitalism, you'll know that there actually is no such thing as ethical consumption in a capitalist system. Unless you're sourcing it yourself, unless you're growing it yourself, unless you're building it yourself, you are not ethically consuming no matter what product you buy. So it's the same concept. Same with the treaty. Unless you are building your community yourself, unless you are building your government yourself, unless you are governing your system yourself, you're under the European system. And the European system itself in this country is based off manipulation. So it really doesn't matter which way you look at it. It doesn't matter which way you do this and that and bish. Now, just give me a moment because I have been talking for about 30 minutes straight and I do want to kind of take a breath. Let's check if audio is good. The European system, and the European system itself in this country is based off manipulation. And bear with me, guys. I say in this country, I talk about it like I'm in New Zealand, but I'm actually living in Australia. That's a little bit of a funny kind of thing there. But you get the concept, you get the idea. And generally, it can apply to both countries. because they pretty much did Europe, they did New Zealand and Australia very similar. The only thing is, they did the First Nations of Australia, they did them a lot more dirty. Don't get me wrong, they did us all dirty. They treated us all like shit. You know, they manipulated all of us. Even if you're European, you know, you guys aren't excluded. You guys think that like somehow you're like above all this shit, above all this system, but you're not the one in power. You're not the one in the government. So, you know, it's like we're all under that system. Same way they treated Maori people, same way they treated First Nations of Australia, is the same way they're treating you guys. So I don't know why you guys are acting like you're in any bit of a position just because you might have a nicer house, you might have a nice government job, you might have this and that, you might have a nice university degree, but a lot of you guys are a lot more depressed. I would say that. A lot of you guys don't have any mana. You don't have any pride, you know, not to say you should always have pride, because pride can be unhealthy at the same time. But a lot of certain European people don't even have any culture to be prideful of, which is the more healthy version of pride. You know, when you're actually proud of your culture, when you're proud of your tupuna, your spiritual predecessors. When you don't have any of that, you feel like that there's nothing to enjoy, there's nothing to appreciate in life. There's nothing to savor, because you don't have a culture, you don't have anything that actually fulfills you. You don't have anything to live by. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of European people with culture. That's why you see a lot of people like Italians, a lot of people like even certain Spanish people, but I can't speak much for those because I don't really know many Spanish people. But even like, what else? Like even, I'll go so far to say certain Irish people even. But those, you know, you guys are a little bit more colonized than something like an Italian. But let's say, just given an example of Italian, they're more in tune with their culture. Yeah, they're European, but they're a lot more in tune with their culture, with their language, you know, with their ethnicity, with their like landmass, wherever they're from, even if they're on another land. And you see them, they'd be a lot more happy than a lot of certain European people who just call themselves white because they don't know where they come from. They don't know their culture. They don't know their spiritual predecessors. They don't know their tupuna. So they don't have anything to connect to other than, you know, a whole bunch of what the government gave them. I'll be back, guys. Give me a sec. I did want to show you guys some photos. I just ended up Xing them out though. So I'm going to have to either get those back up or maybe I'll just save that for another video. Because damn, I don't even need the photos, bro. Like, the shit that I'm saying, like, you can't really refute it. You can't really go against it. And if you can, you know, by all means, do what you got to do. But there's not many things that you can say to kind of rebut what I'm actually saying. It's pretty concrete. It's pretty solid. But yeah, even going down to all they try to depict us as like we didn't have some kind of like we didn't have like a modern way of living, or you know what you guys would consider as modern. We had whole villages. We had something called pa. That's basically a village. If anything, our villages were fortified, so that's even a step above a village. It wasn't just a village. it was a fortified village. So you know if there's fortification, you know there's intention to be stable. There's intention to actually withstand something. You know, it's not just like freaking senseless building. You know, like all that shit that they try to paint it out like. Even in like what's it called? I posted something ages ago like about how we were clothed. They try to make it like if you look at even let's search it up. I'll show you guys this. See if I can get this screen share. Window capture. There we go. I thought I was gonna crash. So yeah, they try to make it look like in the pictures in the old artworks, they try to make it look like that we didn't have like some kind of color in our clothing and shit like that. Why is it always, whenever they paint Maori people or whenever they paint First Nations people, it's always in some brown, some monotone brown and, you know, gray kind of tones with a brown background and all that shit. And then you look at all the Europeans that they paint in the same time period, same pictures, and then you see them in blues, beautiful blues and all that shit like that. But yet, see, look at that. Perfect photo, perfect of what I'm explaining. Where did it go? Where the fuck did it go? How do you click on a photo? Now all of a sudden the photo isn't there. Like what? Make it make sense, Google. What the fuck are you on? Anyways, just click that so you can see it. Like, and then I'll zoom in. Because I know how to fucking use technology. Oh, bitch, apparently not. Just as I'm saying it, eh? Just as it's always like that. Well, no, I won't say it's always like that. I don't want to wish that upon myself. But even here, I like, what is that? They try to, like, see, they got the all the brown clothing, right? They got all this, which, you know, it's not bad. Like, I'm not saying it's bad to wear brown clothing, but it's always picturing Maori within brown kind of muddy colors, and then you always see them in like white bright. But if you actually look, there's actually articles and there's like written journal entries of when they came to New Zealand, and they describe Maori as having beautiful adornments, beautiful clothing, beautiful white clothing. They didn't describe us as having brown clothing. They actually depicted us as being very, very prestigious and very, very well dressed, right? So it'd be more similar to how they depict it in these photos. See? Now they got all the color. And look, what is this? An article. It says 10 facts that prove the native Maori people of New Zealand didn't go down without a fight or whatever. So that's them trying to depict, and they're trying to be more of like the sympathizer, trying to. So you already know this person might even be Maori, because look, they tried to turn the tables now. Look at the Europeans. They got the brown coat, the green, like the monotone. So whoever, I wouldn't doubt that whoever wrote this, if they're not Maori, they know a lot of Maori people, and they know a lot about Maori in general. I highly reckon. I would not be surprised. And look at this. See, Maori traditional clothing, a timeless cultural treasure. And who is it by? Polynesian Pride blog. So you see the difference you see all the beautiful clothing with the from the actual Maori and Polynesian people. And when you get the Europeans back in those days, they always try to depict Maori as having like grey, brown, dark tone. So you already know that's some form of manipulation going on there, because one side of the story does not match to the other. And you already know whenever that happens, somebody's fucking lying. And you don't need to be a genius to know that shit. You know what I mean? Like, you do not need to be a genius to know that. Bro, I just realized I wasn't even showing you guys. I freaking turned the window capture off, and I wasn't even showing it. But yeah, let me show. History. So I'll show you guys this one. So the one I was just talking about was of course, now that was one of the ones that I was showing, but that was more the brown one, right? And then you got this. This is the one I was talking about here, where I was saying this person's probably a Maori, or if not, they know Maori. Because they're trying to flip the script, basically. And then this person here, what? Polynesian Pride blog. And already you see that Maori did not wear those freaking brown ass, grey ass shit they tried to paint us in. So, you know, like I said, you know, somebody's fucking lying. Somebody is not matching up their story with the truth. So anyways, you guys do your research, go further in on that. I don't want to baby feed you guys too much, you know, I'll just say it how it is. But that is what it is, you know, and if someone's lying, then you already know who's more likely to lie, because you already know who is, you already know who's more likely to lie, because you already know who has a history and a track record of lying. And it ain't Maori people. I'll tell you that much. Don't get me wrong. And this is, I don't want to say this. See, some people might get offended and be like, oh, so what? White people are just liars. No, we're talking about the government. We're talking about the government system. We're not talking about Maori people can lie too. White people can lie too. We're not talking about your ethnicity. We're talking about the government. Who in the government is trying to, you know, because Maori people had government. We had government systems. We had positions where we were actually able to govern amongst ourselves. Right? So when I'm talking about that, you know, some people might get offended and be like, oh my gosh, so what? You hate white people? No, fucking, what the fuck? If you thought that all of this was about race and ethnicity, you missed the whole point of the video. You missed the whole entire point of the video. So yeah, that's that. And I will see you guys for the next video. But do your own research, you know, research deep into it, go a little bit deeper into this, because now that I've posted this video, they'll definitely try to cover up some shit, you know. If they come across this video, they'll be like, oh, we need to start getting a little bit more sneaky, we need to start manipulating a little bit more better, we've got to erase this thing off the internet, we've got to cross this thing out of the internet, we've got to make sure this is never ever seen, we've got to make sure these pictures don't get put up. All of that shit. They try to do anything they can to keep their little clean, perfect image. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. Because if I really did, you would see me being all prim, proper, beautiful, acting like some fucking haughty ass bitch. Is that even the right word? Haughty? I don't know. But you get the idea that I'm trying to point across. Like, you know, like high and mighty. Like acting like all of that. Like, I'm not no high and mighty hoe, bitch. I don't give a fuck. And I will continue to not give a fuck, okay? So please, do indulge. Do indulge. I don't know why I said that, but yeah. I'll see you guys for the next video. And I will enjoy it too. Peace. Do your research and don't be an idiot, okay? Don't be an idiot. Because if you're an idiot, then the European will make you think that they're legitimate, and that is not the case, baby. Okay, baby? So, enjoy your night, have a beautiful time, and I will see you all for the next video. Oh, wrong one. I try to end the live from outside the app. No, you gotta end it from inside the system.